Hey, what's going on, guys? Panthers beat reporter Mike Kaye here, and I am joined by Alex Zietlow of the Charlotte Observer, and we are here to process blue for you. It's the Processing Blue podcast. Training camp's underway. We've got a great interview. When I say great, I mean it. A great interview with JJ Jansen coming up, America's long snapper. But Alex, how you doing? It's been hot the last couple of days.
I'm good. No, it's so funny. Like every single conversation that you have with your media peers on the sideline always has to do with the weather. Like I know that you don't want to talk about weather with your colleagues, like, oh my gosh, how mundane and boring this is. But like, yo, this heat has been intrusive. Like it's always like, hey, are you gonna go get water? Can I get some? Oh my gosh, where's the shade? Oh my gosh, can we go into the big refrigerator, the what's it called?
Cooling trailer?
The cooling trailer. Yeah, no, don't worry. I read your story.
Oh, wonderful story.
But
A wonderful website.
But I'm just like perhaps that's like me realizing like, hey, I've been in the business for a while because like all I do is talk about the weather when I'm outside. It's like it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of sad. But anyway, this is boring. I'm sorry for even bringing it up.
Well, to your point, beat writing kind of ages you. You know, like those commercials where you see like they're becoming their parent. Like
Yes.
like it's like just make sure you wash behind the ears. You know what I mean? Like you're like
Did you put on some? No, it's it's actually mad funny. I'm walking up to practice a couple of days ago, and Brant Tillis is right in front of me, and I'm walking at a brisk pace because I'm running a little late. And
what does?
And Brant goes, Alex, did you remember your sunscreen today? And I was just like, Brant, you're the man. Thank you, bro.
Have I not said that to you several times?
But some words way heavier. I mean, like when I hear it from you a lot, I'm just like, Mike, stop. But when Brant says it, I'm like, you know what? He's looking out for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's run the calculations on that whole thing. Anyway, speaking of that, you can check out an awesome story about the analytics department on charlotteobserver.com. We recently did that one. Let's get into this because people don't want to hear about the weather. They want to hear about what's going down at training camp.
Yeah.
And so far, there have been four non-padded practices and one padded practice. Wow, that is hard to say. And look, we've gotten a lot out of it. Obviously, there's been some moving and shaking at the bottom of the roster. Chandler Zavala suffered a patellar tendon injury on Monday. He'll be out from week to week, but so far they've been largely unscathed outside of, Chuba Hubbard punching Trevin Wallace in the face mask.
Okay, Trevin Wallace gave him an eggnog on his forehead.
Right, correct. That's true. I didn't even know that terminology. He basically had a welt on his head.
Well, I think
for those of us that are, not familiar with that.
No, I think he made it up. I don't even think it's a Canadian thing.
I mean, he didn't call it a Tim Hortons, but whatever. Anyway, great coffee. I know you don't drink coffee. Anyway, let's get to this, okay? I want to take us down a couple of different categories. You and I have been at every practice. I believe we're the only outlet that has had everybody on the squad from an outlet there all the time. At least a multi-man squad. And in some cases, a multi-person squad. Our great photographer, Melissa, being out there as well. You guys may remember her from the Superman documentary. She was terrific in that. And again, speaking of the Superman documentary, we will talk to JJ Jansen about training camp and everything else in between in a few minutes. But let's get into a kind of an award ceremony of sorts. And we're going to do this kind of lightning speed because if you've ever talked to JJ Jansen, you know that conversation was quite robust. Yeah, let's go with that. Anyway, so who are our MVPs on offense and defense of training camp? I will start with my defensive MVP, and then you're going to give me your offensive, and then I will go offensive, and then you go defense.
Oh, okay, so we're sandwiching.
Yeah, we're sandwiching an O sandwich. Didn't really plan that one. Anyway, so I'm going to go with Shaw Smith-Wade, the second-year nickel corner. He's been terrific, breaking up passes, really communication heavy, being used all around the field. He just looks the part, and in talking to teammates and people around the team, it feels like this guy's on the cusp of a really strong leap into year two. Who's your offensive MVP?
Shaw's also a great talker too.
Oh yeah.
If he ascends, it would be a massive boon to the defense and personality of his defense. Okay, so now I do offensive, and
Yep, go for it.
you're gonna smirk or make some sort of joke. Hunter Renfrow.
I'm not gonna smirk. I think I wrote in my mailbag this morning. He's turned this naysayer into a believer. Please.
Well, the reason why he is such an obvious pick is because not only because he's made so many plays, but because he's kind of been the talk of camp. The talk of camp really is how many wide receivers are the Panthers going to keep, and I think we'll address that later on in the show. But a lot of that argument is hinged on, will Hunter Renfrow make the team? And if so, how large will his role be? Well, if training camp is any indication, he's going to have a massive role, just based on how consistent he's been, how good of routes he's been running, how sharp he's been. He is like so much of 2021 in him. Dave Canales has said that. Dabo Sweeney visited practice recently, and he said that. He's a craftsman, and he's showing that. He's putting dudes on skates if you need a really good route, I think against Shaw actually in one-on-ones, where it was just a simple button hook, but like that is what he's going to be asked to do in many ways. So
we like button hooks over the processing boot button.
Yeah, I guess so. Hunter Renfrow is my offensive MVP, and personally, it's not even close.
Well, the reason why I wanted to do this is because I wanted to make sure that you and I had different offensive and defensive MVPs, so I felt like splitting it up made sense.
Okay.
But DOOD is dude.
Dude, you're a genius.
Yes. Anyway, somebody who's not dudes is the offensive MVP for my Kaye, and I would say that's JT Sanders. He's come back, look in incredible shape. He looks much faster than he did last year. I thought he came in last year and kind of looked sluggish, even though he was getting all those reps. He looks like a completely different player. They're lining him up, pretty much everywhere, and he is coming down with the ball. He's not getting the targets that you probably would want, but I feel a lot better about this tight end room than I did like maybe 10 days ago.
Yeah.
And so I think that speaks to how important he's been. Who's your defensive MVP?
Well, and one quick thing about Jatavion, toss it back to you. Even when he's not getting the ball, he's winning routes. And he's winning reps. And in year 3 of my training camp, I'm trying to watch things. I am watching more than just the ball. And he's winning a lot of the times. And I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Yeah, man. Freaking space.
My guy and I'm doing defensive MVP. And if Hunter Renfrow was a cop-out, I know this guy's going to be a cop-out. It is Princely Umanmielen. The reason why I say that, is it a cop-out, I get it. He plays a very splashy position, getting after the quarterback pass rusher. I get it. He hit Bryce at the end of the first practice, which caused a social media storm, which had Dave Canales addressing it post-practice. It even had him addressing it on his Discord or whatever. Did you see that video? It went.
Yes, I did.
Then he was just like, no. Why are y'all saying, who is this? This is looking poorly on Ike Ekwonu. No, I'm nice like that. Like that's really what he said. That's essentially what he said. And I get all that. He's getting a lot of attention. I still think he has been the MVP. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that JC Horn and Mike Jackson haven't, you're not going to go right at them. If you're Bryce Young, the Josie Jewell has kind of taken a lot of the air out of the linebacker position, and they're still trying to figure out life after him. Princely's just gotten to the quarterback, and he's been really strong, and he's been really just good. So that's going to be my defensive MVP.
All right, now we're going to go into most promising rookie, and I know you just said that Princely is the defensive MVP, but who is who's the guy in that group, the most promising rookie, even with Princely being the defensive MVP?
Yeah, and perhaps this is just trying to do good radio and split up them. But my most promising rookie is Tetairoa McMillan. And all I really need to show or see is that one-on-one drill that he had with Mike Jackson, where he essentially did like a little hitch and go. It didn't look like he had the best hitch necessarily, but you could see the speed and you could see how fast he plays and you can see how smooth he is. And Bryce Young threw a wonderful dot right over his back shoulder and he corralled it in. And that's a 50-yard play that really didn't require a lot of like scheming him open. It was just him running down the field and making a play. And if Tedderoa can do that, this offense is going to ascend. This offense is going to make leaps and bounds in explosiveness. And so it's not, he hasn't done just that play, but that play really is emblematic of how explosive he can be. What about you, Mike?
Well, let me add to T-Mac. I think what's impressive about him is if an accurate ball is thrown his way, he's catching it, period.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him make more inaccurate passes into catches. Because I always talk about it with AJ Brown. AJ Brown's a kingmaker. He's a QB maker. If you throw in his general area, he's going to come down with it 9 times out of 10. It doesn't matter how. I mean, Jalen Hurts isn't known to be the most accurate quarterback ever. Anyway, he had a play yesterday, was it Monday, where he broke free on a crosser and looked like he was running like a 4-3. He was so wide open. And there was a little bit of a muddled pocket, and Bryce threw it on like a rope to him, set him up for yards after catch. It would have been a 45-yard catch and run for a touchdown. The guy I'm going to go with is Nick Scordon, and specifically because of the last 2 days.
Okay.
I've watched him crush down on the edge against tight ends and offensive tackles. Oh, not necessarily on the ball, but away from the ball.
Yeah.
I think this guy is going to be a disruptor. I don't know what the sack numbers are going to look like. I almost don't care, but I think he's going to have a lot of tackles for loss. I think he's going to have a lot of run stops. I think as bad as the pass rush was, the run defense was exponentially worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he's going to make a huge immediate impact. I think Princely will get off to a really nice start as a pass rusher. Give me Nick Scordon as a run defender and an early down guy. And I think that's how he kind of becomes, if he is going to take that starting role, it's because he is a better run stopper than DJ Wanham. And that's kind of where I see it right now.
Yeah. The disruptor thing is perfect. I mean, there was one play in particular on Tuesday's practice where he just bull rushes on the left side, bull rushes Brady Christensen, Andy Dalton's in the game. And Andy is everything is covered downfield, and he's just trying to dump it off in the backfield. Well, he can't really because Nick Scordon is all up in his pocket. And so he's turning to the strong side, and Nick Scordon's blowing it up. Even though it won't show up on the stat sheet, it caused a huge eruption on the defensive line because they saw, hey, this is what this guy could be.
Yeah, he's like, if you're a tight end, good luck. Because his upper body, like, while he's lost weight, is like, the way he uses his body, even after losing roughly 25 pounds, is just impressive, especially for a guy who's not even 21 yet. Let's get into our dark horses. I'll start because a guy I want to talk about is cornerback Corey Thornton. Undrafted rookie. The Panthers did not draft a corner in this class. A lot has been made about the corner class. We talked about Shaw Smith-Wade. To me, Corey Thornton, if Shamar Bartholomew isn't the fourth cornerback, it's Corey Thornton. He's gotten a lot of work as of late. He did a really nice job breaking up a pass to JT Sanders today, which arguably could have been called a hold. What impressed me the most about him is, yes, on Monday, there was a rep where he got beat for a catch by T-Mac, and then immediately the next rep, he batted down a ball to David Moore. And David Moore's a savvy guy. I know he's not like the most talented dude, but he is a savvy guy. And so see that confident bounce back. If there's an undrafted guy with a shot of making this roster, he is no worse than, like, maybe you say Ryan Fitzgerald because he's just battling one guy. Corey Thornton's a guy so far that I think makes sense as a long-term backup to, the Mike Jackson, J.C. Horn, sort of really tall, lanky corner.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about the other guy that he's really battling for that fourth cornerback spot in Shamar Bartholomew.
Start at Barth.
Yeah, absolutely. This is more of a mainstream pick because he's had such a great spring and summer, and you had a wonderful day today where he picked off Bryce in the red zone. Dave Canales kind of addressed it today, and here's a quote that I pulled from the story that I wrote today on charlotteobserver.com, wonderful website.
You might have heard of it.
He goes, I think with Shamar understanding the scheme, coming from the Jets out of scheme, he spent a year with us learning. He showed up in the Falcons game at the end and made a couple plays for us there, a couple of big battles with Drake London in the end zone and toward the second half, toward the end of the half. And then he came into camp, has been steady, but I thought today was a big day for him. Just the thing we've been challenging him is to make a play on the ball. Dave went on to say, you're in the right spot, have the confidence to go make a play. And that's kind of what Shamar's been doing. And when you put it in that context of him having to learn this defensive scheme and now being able to be, okay, I'm in the right spot. Let my instincts and my talent do the rest. I think he's done a wonderful job of that. So I'm going to make him my dark horse.
Well, and speaking of training camp, we had a lovely conversation with JJ Jansen, and he can kind of weigh in on some of the other battles. I mentioned Ryan Fitzgerald. Well, I might have called Ryan Fitzpatrick because my brain feels like it's melting.
No, you said Fitzgerald.
Oh, look at me. And Matthew Wright. And here's our conversation with JJ Jansen. We are joined by America's long snapper, I guess you would call it minority owner, with the majority personality of the Charlotte Checkers and the Gastonia Ghost Peppers, JJ Jansen. JJ, this has been a long time coming, and I think Alex is extremely excited about this, more so even than me, as much as I like to talk about long snappers.
I mean, I'm really excited, but I don't know where you got that from. I mean, it's in your presence, obviously.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, for those who don't know, JJ is probably the person that we all go to when we want perspective, both historically and, I guess, in the moment of things. Because I think, I've said this to you before, JJ, I always view you, at least from probably the fan perspective, you're kind of the POV character of the Panthers. You've been here the longest. You've seen everything. You're a historian of the team. And one of the cool things that happened when Superman, the documentary that we all got to watch last week, that was done by Scott Fowler, Thaden James, and Jeff Seinert, somebody sitting next to us at the premiere, and they're like, I'm going to ask JJ about his future in the media. And I think, while, he skipped the pleasantries in the question.
Yeah, you were right for it.
Yeah, I think what's very cool about you, and I will stop talking and let you unravel this whole thing, but it seems like media's in your future. I know we talk about Greg and we talk about Luke and all those guys, but what does that say about you that when you're doing FNZ or you're doing these podcasts, you leave an impression that, hey, not only do you belong in the football spectrum, but you also belong in the media spectrum as well?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Probably a lot of kids that grew up and played video games and played sports, I always found myself playing Madden or Ken Griffey Jr. baseball, for those that remember that game. And I would announce the games as I was playing them. I've always thought that broadcasting was just this unbelievably cool way to bring sports to the fan. And then you get in, you play, and you sort of forget about what broadcasting's all about. And 5, 6, 7 years ago, as Greg was starting to get more into it, we would have a lot of these conversations, and it sort of rekindled this. No, I like explaining stuff. I like giving context. As I sort of elevated from a young player on the team to being one of the tenured guys like Scott Fowler and you and Joe Person and Darren Gant, before he was even working for the team, they started asking me questions, and they oftentimes were sort of contextual questions. They didn't have a specific, let's talk about football, but it was, I remember in 2013, there was a MRSA outbreak in Tampa Bay, and we were playing them on a Thursday night. We were 3-3 at the time. And Joe came up. I think Joe was working at the Observer at the time. He goes, well, I guess you're as good as anybody to talk about it. Let's talk about MRSA. And I was thrust into this conversation about something I'm not medically prepared to handle, but they came to me for some context. And I found out over time, I really enjoy explaining sort of everything that surrounds the game as much as I like talking about the sport itself. And I always think of myself when I'm talking football, like I'm talking to my wife. My wife Laura, she knows a ton about all sports, was an athlete herself, volleyball player, ran track. She's done and seen it all. But I always think about, how can I communicate things that she can visually see, but maybe doesn't understand terminology or why, strategy. I'm always kind of thinking of her as the person I'm trying to explain to. So a fan with a certain level of sophistication, but maybe not all the inside knowledge. And then the cool part for me is in an NFL locker room, I'm kind of that person. I understand fourth downs as well as anybody here, but downs 1 through 3, I am, much lower on the sophistication level. So I've been really blessed as broadcasting has kind of continued to grow. I get to be the one that explains things. I also get to be the guy that's in the locker room asking questions and hopefully having guys sort of unpack stuff. And I think there's a lot of cool knowledge that comes out of that. And I think that's one of the beauties of broadcasting is to be able to explain things to the common fan.
And I think when people watch the Superman documentary that's available on this very same YouTube or on our YouTube channel, Charlotte Observer, you do such a good job of placing us. You like your ability to retain that information and have that kind of photographic memory of what happened. Like I've said it several times since I've seen the documentary. Like I was covering a completely different team. The way Scott and Thaden and all of your voices kind of came together, it felt like I was in Charlotte at the time, and I could recall all that stuff. Do you like when you look back at that documentary? Did it convey what you were trying to get across and what you think the team was?
I thought so. The big personality that stands out is Cam. And I've said it 1,000 times. You can't explain the 2015 team without explaining that Cam Newton was a national sensation. And we were all sort of going around in his orbit. And I think what the documentary did an awesome job of explaining was not only was Cam the show, but he brought all of us along for the ride. So one of the things that we didn't talk about in the documentary was like there was this whole dancing and dabbing thing that was going on. Was the season was going around, other guys on the team were sort of being called out to dab like in the stretch lines. And by the time we got to the Super Bowl, I was up. Like I got to do, I was like dancing and dabbing along with the song. I can't remember the name of the song anymore, but I feel like when it comes on, I immediately want to like dab. So, so we were all sort of along for the ride. And I heard Scott on maybe a radio show this week talk about what was special about 15 was we were really good at the start, but no one believed in us. So it wasn't like the 03 team where they kind of became the cardiac cats and they got hot like in November, December, but you didn't really know what they were. Like we got to the end of October and we were 8-0 and everyone thought we stunk and we were the worst 10-0 team in history and all these stuff, but we were 10-0. We were 14-0. Like there was never like a lull in the season. But while that was happening, like the sensation of what we were, and specifically what Cam was sort of taking over the nation. I remember Roman Harper, I think he said in the documentary, he said it 1,000 times, like grandmas were dabbing in Charlotte and across the country. And that was because of Cam. I can assure you, no 80-year-old grandma was watching any of the rap videos that this was going on. They were watching Cam. And then it sort of matriculated out from him to the team. And then obviously Charlotte and the Carolinas at large. So that was a really special group. Also because, and I think I may have said it, like Cam was the show, but he wasn't the only leader on the team. In fact, I'd argue that he didn't lead the team. I'd say like Thomas was the emotional leader of the team. Luke ran the defense. Greg and Ryan were really instrumental in leading the offense. But Cam created the freedom that he was taking all the arrows. He was taking all the shots. And so the other 52 of us could kind of live in our orbit, and it created a world in which it was pretty easy to operate because of the space that Cam gave us to be ourselves, which was really cool. He set the bar so high on act like yourself that it was very easy to have your own personality and no one ever noticed. That was pretty special what Cam did for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And JJ, you did a really wonderful job during the documentary and just now of explaining the team dynamics among each other, like Tolbert being a really good DJ and all these things. But I'm going to go to the contextual well that you are for a second. Jonathan Stewart had a really profound quote in there where he essentially said, if I could go back after that NFC Championship game and bottle up how the city felt and put it in my pocket, I would. How would you describe how this city and, this sports town felt after that week, because I think as a Charlotte sports fan or as a Charlotte resident, you know, Charlotte's success in sports hasn't been there the past several years, and I think some people have kind of forgotten how special this city could feel when the sports teams are like really, really on this magical run. So could you kind of tell me what that feeling was like, however ephemeral it was? Like, what was it like after that championship game?
So I was really blessed. So in 2008, I was signed as an undrafted free agent to the Green Bay Packers. And in that draft class was a wide receiver, Jordy Nelson. So Jordy and I were buddies. His wife, Emily, was really good friends with my wife, Laura. And we've kept in touch for 20 years. But we were getting ready to play the NFC Championship game. And they had 4 years prior gone to the Super Bowl. And Emily had called my wife and said, you guys should really enjoy the NFC Championship game. It doesn't get any better than the NFC Championship game. So they had won it in Chicago in 2010. And then they went and won the Super Bowl in Dallas. And she's like, the Super Bowl wasn't the highlight. The NFC Championship game was.
Wow.
So I had that in my mind as we were playing that game. And what people kind of forget about that game was we got out to an early lead. Arizona started to come back. And we actually punted after 2 consecutive 3-and-outs. We actually punted to Patrick Peterson, and our punter, Brad Nortman, hit kind of like a sidewinding ball off the side of his foot. It was right down their sideline, and Peterson's going to hit it on the run, and it's probably going to be a touchdown. And the ball at the last minute kept curving. It hit the side of his shoulder. It fell down, and our gunner, Teddy Williams, landed on it. And we went right down and scored. It was 24-7, scored again, and the game was over. But it was close, like it could have turned. So in the fourth quarter, I talked about a fan falling out of the stands with Luke and the whole bit. Like that place for like the last 10 minutes of the game, maybe even 20 minutes of the game, was a celebration. And I just remember thinking to myself the whole time, like, I need to take this in, because whether we win or lose the Super Bowl, and again, there isn't a soul in this building that was here that thought we were going to lose that game. No one thought we would lose to Denver. We had a great offense. We had a great defense. We understood what Denver was. Now, we respected their defense, but there wasn't a doubt in our mind we were going to win that Super Bowl. I just knew from what Emily had told my wife to like take in the moment, because I knew that the Super Bowl was incredibly corporate, because they had told me that. And it's just such a long week. You're just exhausted. And so for one night here in Charlotte on a cold, it's like 40 degrees, it was perfectly clear skies, but it was cold, and you could feel the energy in the building. I'll never forget that night. And that was the most special night of my career. And if we'd won the Super Bowl, I'd still say that the NFC Championship game would have been the most special night, because we were in our building with our fans, with our people, and you were never going to recreate that no matter where the Super Bowl was, let alone Santa Clara all the way across the country. And that was the most special night of my career.
I think what's kind of interesting too, and I mean, our talks over the years, you're a believer in Charlotte and North Carolina in general, right? So that led you to purchase minority stake in the most successful sports franchise in Charlotte at the moment, the Charlotte Checkers, the
Checkers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my parents.
Yeah, you got it right.
It's been a hot day, the Charlotte Checkers. But it doesn't sound like, it didn't initially sound right in my brain. And then the Gastonia Ghost Peppers that house former Phillies utility legend Dalton Guthrie.
Oh wow, how could we?
Yeah, I mean,
I can't without mentioning Dalton.
Well, I saw that the other night and I said, that's a Kaye's take. But anyway, JJ, what is it about not only, this city and this state that we have all kind of grown to enjoy, even coming from other places, that made you want to invest in teams here, but also just invest in teams in general, especially while you've still got time on your clock in the NFL?
Well, and you don't even know, like, Greensboro Gargoyles or the EHL team of the Carolina Hurricanes. So we're doing all kinds of stuff. It's great. I love the Carolinas, and my wife and I are deeply, deeply committed to doing as much sports related stuff in the Carolinas. It's been a great town for us. We love raising our kids here. We love raising our family. And my wife and I, we know sports. Like, that's what we've done our whole life. Competing, playing, coaching our kids. Like, this is what we do. But I also, and this kind of relates back to those early teams that I was a part of with the Panthers, is I realized that this place operates best when the fans and the players are connected, when they're able to kind of come together, celebrate on the field, celebrate in the community, do really important charitable work in the community because of the brand that you've created, whether it's with the Panthers, the Checkers, the Ghost Peppers, the Gargoyles, or any number of things that I'm hoping to be a part of here locally. Like, not only are they good investments in businesses, but they're great opportunities for families to do family time and go to games. They're great opportunities to give back to the community, build public and private partnerships to grow athletics, and just good opportunities and good adventures for families in the area. That it was sort of this marriage of investment and interest in the executive side of sports, which we've talked about before. Like, the idea of being an owner, general manager has always been super interesting to me. And then also just the community aspect. And again, that 2015 team, I know we keep circling back because it's at the top of my mind anyways, was the city was so connected to their players. It was the reason, we've talked about this before, it was the reason I brought back Cart Talk. Cart Talk existed on the Panthers channel for a couple of years, and it didn't exist for a couple during COVID. But my big takeaway when we started that back in 2023 was our town doesn't know our players the way they should. We've got great personality. We got great human beings, and we want to be able to give them little snippets in a really busy day of just getting to know guys like Trevin Wallace and Adam Thielen and Bryce Young in different elements than just, behind a podium or in a locker room after the game. So any and all ways to connect fans to players and to families, my wife and I were in. And so that's been one of the great pleasures here the last couple of years, is being able to build out sort of these opportunities beyond just playing for the Panthers.
JJ, you're really good at the Cart Talk stuff, man. Like, I know you hear it a lot probably, but it is really quite fun. I wanted to ask you about the some current guys on the Panthers team. You're going to work really closely with the specialists, obviously. I know there's kicking competition right now, so I'm not going to touch that.
I will later.
Sam Martin just came off the non-football injury list. He has been practicing this week. I know he's relatively new, and I know how close you were with Johnny Hecker. What as you have been with multiple punchers throughout your career, what are your first impressions of him as we kind of charge through training camp?
Well, Sam's got a live leg. It's fast. He's 35 years old, but he swings his leg as fast as anybody in the league. And it's really it's pretty impressive to watch. I've played against Sam a number of years. Again, he's going into year 13 or 14. He was with the Lions for the first 7 or 8 of his career. So we played them a bunch. He's been in the AFC for a while, so a little bit more limited contact. App State, he's always had kind of one eye on the Carolinas because of that connection. I've just been really impressed with his professionalism, which was not a shock, but just the way he goes about his business. The relationship with the snapper is more with the punter, because I'm trying to set him up both in the punt game and on short snaps in the kicking game. Mm-hmm. The punter's got the hardest job, in my opinion, of the specialist, because he's managing multiple relationships. He's managing the relationship with the snapper, and he's managing the relationship with the kicker, and he's the middleman. And anyone that's ever been in any sort of middleman position, those are hard jobs because you're working on both sides of the chain. So what I really like about Sam, and Johnny had this skill. I've been fortunate to be around punter. Mike Pilardi was one of the same, was very similar. Unbelievable interpersonal skills, the ability to be serious, to be funny, to be detailed, to be relaxed. Like, there's I think every good punter has a little bit of like Bones McKay, like the great caddies in golf. they've got not only a skill, but they've also got the psychological element. And so that's the thing you don't know when you're watching, guys on the field. Hey, that's a great punter. That was a great hole. You don't know how they handle all the interpersonal stuff. And that's a big part of the job. And that's been kind of the coolest part to get to know him. He's got a great feel for how the mental side works with the physical side, not just for him, but for the rest of us. And that's been really cool to see.
Yeah, it's great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, we've always called Alex the punter of the Processing Blue podcast because he's got such great interpersonal skills. He also talks to Zach. He's the middleman there. He's forget
Middle men matter. That's rule. Get t-shirts going.
Yeah. JJ. So to bring it back to the kicking competition, I think one of like the big moments that I've had in covering this team, or at least to witness and kind of illustrate, is when Eddie missed the kicks in Atlanta, and you and Baker and Taylor and a few other guys kind of rally around him. The kicking position can be very volatile. And I think, as a guy who, you're coming back for your 1,000,000th season as a long snapper, I'm just curious what your
complimentary million.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, he's an Iron Man.
Yeah, but Mike, you got to make that clear, bro. Like,
people can just take what they want. Like, I guess from your perspective, you've got these two young kickers in here. And while, Martin's been, like, I guess the middleman, like you said, with punter stuff, what's your outlook on these two guys? And it seems like a pretty even matchup, no?
So you're spot on. The one thing I'll sort of correct you, though, is like Matt Wright's been around the league for a while. He's made a lot of kicks in the league, but he's never really been able to sort of hold down a job for multiple years, and not necessarily because he's not talented. His one full season in Jacksonville, he was 21 of 24. They went through a coaching change, and I would probably argue he got kind of caught up in the wash. He's been in Pittsburgh behind Chris Boswell, who's an excellent kicker. He's been in Kansas City behind Harrison Butker, who's an excellent kicker. He's not losing jobs to guys that don't make kicks. So he just hasn't been able to land sort of that one spot. Ryan comes to us coming off an unbelievable senior season. It's got a strong leg. What's interesting about kicking now versus the last time I was part of like a real long kicking competition, coming into the beginning of 2017, Graham Gano, our kicker, was coming off an injury and had a down year for him. We draft Harrison Butker in the 7th round. Harrison didn't want to come here. He didn't want to come here specifically because his thing coming out of college was he had this awesome kickoff leg, and nobody in the NFL wanted to compete with Graham on kickoffs. Graham was considered for 5 years straight like the number one kickoff guy, and that was Harrison's bread and butter. Well, we get into camp, and the first 10 days of camp, Harrison was awful. He was no good, but there were all of these soft skills, his ability to rebound, his composure, his process. You just knew he was going to be good. And we were gearing up for a playoff run, and I think our front office just couldn't pull the trigger on starting with a rookie in that phase of where that team was. Well, they both made the 53-man roster. Harrison was here for about 2 or 3 weeks. They eventually put him on practice squad, and Kansas City snapped him up within like days. And the rest is history. He's won Super Bowl. He's made tons of big kicks. And I'm really proud of everything he's done. So there's a lot that goes into a kicking competition where you guys in the media, fans, they're reading, well, did he go 4 for 5 or 5 for 5? Was that the skinny post or the big post? How long was that kick? And what I always say, not only to the kickers that are here, but also anyone that'll listen, is there's so much to the kicking competition that you don't just see in practice. It's the ability to connect with the team. It's the ability to show, like, we're not expecting every kicker to make every kick. Can you bounce back? Can you miss one in the 3rd quarter and hit the game winner in the 4th quarter? Can you go on a long streak, miss one, and get it right back? Can you have a bad game and your demeanor just stays like that? The other thing that I think is very different than 2017 and the new kickoff rules, the requirement to have a big, strong leg is not the same it was even 3 years ago. Kickoffs, you got to have all these specialty kicks. It's not about the driver anymore. It's about, do you have the 60-degree wedge and you can kind of shoot the ball around wherever you want it? And then can you make a kick inside 55 yards. Most of the league, they're going for it on fourth downs a lot. So while big legs matter in the past, you want everyone to be as strong as they possibly can be. I think it's a little bit more, what's the personality? What's the composure? How professional are they? Matt's shown that at a number of different stops. Ryan, as a rookie, is naturally trying to learn. And that's my job as a guy who's been here forever is, hey, this is how you do things. When you mess up, this is how you bounce back. I can't teach him one thing about kicking. Sam has kicked. Sam could probably teach him a thing or two about kicking, but it's all of the other stuff that matters. Where Eddie was really good for 3 years was miss a kick, bounce back. Like Atlanta stunk. That was a terrible game for us as a team, how it ended. And Eddie obviously felt awful. Part about being the kicker on the team is standing up and talking to the media, owning it, and then bouncing back and get going to next week, which he did. So, all of those things are, I'm sure, being taken into account. That job, thankfully not mine, Tracy, Dave, Dan, Brant, all the decision makers. But how those guys all interact with the rest of the team, I think the team has a little bit of say in it, just based on all the interpersonal stuff. Because at the end of the day, they're playing 75 plays a game. You kind of want them to sort of say, we trust this guy. If it comes down to one kick, that's the guy we want to put our money on.
Well, JJ, that was absolutely wonderful insight into, the kicking game and really all the specialists. And this is why you have this reputation for being so great at explaining things. It is not a Processing Blue podcast if we don't ask about Bryce Young.
If Alex doesn't specifically ask about Bryce.
And I know that you are that in training camp you're doing your thing as the fourth emergency quarterback.
Throws beautiful.
Yeah, getting the DB some work there. But I do want to ask you about your third year quarterback. The first thing that everyone says is that he's jawing with one of the greatest trash talkers, a trash talking virtuoso, and JC Horn. They're going at each other. I feel like we said this last training camp. He feels more comfortable than he did the year prior. All these things. Not only your relationship with Bryce, but in terms of like quarterbacks going into their third year, how do you think Bryce is doing so far through this offseason?
I joked last year, he really came out of his shell post Cart Talk. He came back with a visor for Tampa. He kind of is sort of the coming out party. What you saw at the end of year 2 is what we're seeing now, which is a confident Bryce, someone that's playing kind of in his own skin. Dave Canales said this to me in OTAs. We were actually talking about youth baseball. His son's the same age as my son. We're sort of living the same things when it comes to baseball. And coach was saying, like, if the voice in your head is the coach's, it's probably bad. If the voice in your head is your own, that's when you're playing your best football. And it felt like watching Bryce last year. Once he came back, I guess, what was that, for the Denver game? And then we played, I think, the Saints at home. We go to New York. And just each week, it looked more and more like he was playing inside his own skin. So the stuff that maybe he's not as good at or he's less comfortable doing, we were doing less than that. The freelancing and the creativity that feels like is central to like who he is on the football field, we got more and more of it. We got the personality. We got I guess it wasn't a no-look throw, but the look and throw away to Tommy in the back of the end zone, Atlanta. I've always thought Bryce was Steph Curry. I've always thought that that's kind of what he looked like. It's a little unconventional, but when he just does his thing, you're like, whoa, that was pretty cool. And so I think what we're seeing is more of that. Bryce is not the trash talker Cam was. I don't think I've ever heard Bryce's voice on the field, but he's a quiet trash talker. There's the smirks, the grins, the walk bys. But that's, again, I don't think anyone wants him to be somebody he's not. Like, that's who he is. He's a quieter kid. He's got a little bit more subtlety to his game when it comes to trash talk. He got me in Cart Talk. He set me up for like 90 seconds on his whole, like, they raced it 1 year, 2, and he set me up about being able to come on Cart Talk. I didn't see it coming at all. And so, and he had all this. I watched the episode back a couple times, and the smirk was slowly kind of coming up his face as he knew he had me, but I didn't know he had me. And again, that's who he is. And so in Coach Canales' words, I think the voice in Bryce's head is his own. And coaching staff's done a really nice job of continuing to encourage it and push that forward. There's always coaching. There's always things to get better. But whenever a player can hear their own voice, I think that's really important. And again, we're seeing the confidence come out. And all of a sudden, when you're confident, you're a little bit more willing to trash talk. You're a little bit more willing to step outside your own little world and like become more part of the team. I certainly experienced it. It didn't take me 2 years. It took me 12. But that's what we're looking for in your quarterback. And he doesn't, again, I've lived it. He doesn't have to be the ultimate leader of the team. He's got to be the best version of him. And the cool part about this group this year is there's a lot of guys that have a lot of leadership potential. And so I think the cool part is we're not asking Bryce to be anything more than who he is as he naturally evolves in his leadership. And, year 3 is a pretty big year. I think this is where it sort of begins to come out. If he's the ultimate leader of the whole team all the time, there's nothing better than when your quarterback is doing that. But we've got a lot of guys in a lot of positions where he can carry his weight and just keep growing that role. And that's a pretty comfortable place to live.
JJ, thanks for joining us, man. This was great and a long time coming, and hopefully we'll get you on the podcast again real soon. I know you've got some stuff brewing. Anything you want to plug while you're on with us?
Well, we got Cart Talk coming up. So we did the first one we eventually forever we didn't do rookies. So now we are on to last year's rookies. So Trevor Wallace is up. I'm still trying to get Leggett. No one ever interviews him. He's never on any social media, so he's a little bit harder to get. And so we'll eventually get him on Cart Talk. Getting ready to do some, as you said, some stuff that's sort of in the works. And I'm hoping to be doing some more radio stuff, which is fun for me. But I'm still a Panther player, still planning on playing here for a long time. And so it's sort of one foot sort of looking forward to that. But I guess can I get 3 feet? Because there's 2 feet firmly planted here with the Panthers here for a number of years to come.
Well, they say just keep pounding and eventually.
Keep pounding. There you go. There's a lot of cool phrases.
Yeah. Well, JJ, America's Long Sniper, thank you for joining Processing Blue, where we process the Panthers for you. Appreciate you. And
have you always had that catch line?
That I literally just came up with it. It just happened.
That's pretty catchphrase.
I'm workshopping it.
Yeah, we workshopped it a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, Mike, that rhymes. That it sounds like you thought of this.
I've been watching a lot of Billy just stuff, so I think that's. But
if it rhymes, it must be true. So that's how it works. So you guys are good. That's fun.
Look at us. Well, JJ, thank you for your time, and we'll see you out there on the field. Welcome back. That was a lovely conversation.
So great.
With America's Long Snapper. People talk about the Cowboys being America's team. He is America's Long Snapper. Pretty sure. I'm sure he will make a Pro Bowl this year. Everybody's holding out hope.
He should. And his insight on Bryce was just so wonderful. I mean, I know that you chastised me for asking about Bryce, but I'm just curious about you mining for stories about this guy because the city is really interested in him. And the way that he's like, yeah, he doesn't trash talk like your typical way. He does a little smirk, does a little stare as he walks by, and I'm just like, oh, I know that gets under JC's skin. I just
he slow plays humor. You know what I mean? Like he takes you on a journey. Yeah. But anyway, speaking of taking you on a journey, we want to bring back a segment that we've been doing all summer called Two Things Can Be True. Oh, look at that graphic that Zach made us. Look at that. Even if you're listening to this and with ear pods or whatever, make sure you go back to the YouTube channel and check that out because it's a lovely, lovely graphic. Anyway, two things can be true. This is mine. The Panthers shouldn't keep 7 wide receivers, but they have at least 7 rosterable wide receivers.
Good luck explaining this, Mike.
So, Dench is got cut today, with an injury waiver. And for a while, I was like, if they keep 7, he's going to be the 7th guy because he'll play nothing but special teams. But now that he's gone, you have David Moore, you have Jacoby George, you have Kobe Hudson, you have TJ Luther. Mm-hmm. And I think people want to keep as many talented players as possible. I just think they're going to have to make a lot of tough decisions. And when you keep 6 wide receivers or 7 wide receivers, 4 through 6 or 4 through 7 have to have some special teams upside. We've seen Hunter Renfrow start to get punt return reps. We've seen David Moore get punt return reps in the past. We know those guys can contribute. I'm interested to see how Jalen Coker gets cross-trained on special teams. We know he has played special teams. We don't know how proficient really he is in that regard. If ETN is the kickoff guy and the punt returner, then where does Jimmy Horn get in? So it'll be really interesting to see that throughout the preseasons, throughout joint practices. I think you just keep 6. I would rather have an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman over a 7, like an extra one of those guys, or maybe an extra DB over having 7 wide receivers when you're probably only dressing 5.
Are you prepared to say who the 6 are, or do you want to wait on that?
I mean, fine. Let's do this. This is a podcast. No. If we're doing this today, if the season was tomorrow, it would be T-Mac, Adam Thielen, Leggett, Hunter Renfrow, Jalen Coker, and probably Jimmy Horn.
Wow. Yep.
But only not because, not to get too hardcore into the cap, but David Moore is a vested veteran. He doesn't go to waivers. We've already heard him say he does not want to play for anybody but Canales
On this podcast.
on this podcast. If you cut him, you can keep him on the practice squad for a week, where you would avoid guaranteeing his whole salary for the year. You can bring him back week 2, and then he fills in a role. That would allow you to mine the waiver wire. It would allow you to get a guy to stay on your roster and maybe avoid the waiver wire. I think David Moore's kind of facing an uphill battle because of his contractual and veteran status. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now, there could always be an injury. There could be what have you. We have a while to go. But I think if it were today, that would be my strategy towards the 6. What's your 2 things can be true as we head out of here soon?
Yeah. Great insight, Mike. My 2 things can be true. Losing Chandler Zavala hurts. But it's also true that situations like this are why the Panthers stockpiled the offensive line to begin with. Yeah, there's no way around it. Having an offensive lineman have a knee injury and be going week to week is not what you want to hear.
Agreed.
Second week of training camp, Chandler Zavala played 10 games his rookie season, battled some injury but then played all 17 last year. Even though he only started 2, he played all 17. So he was really durable his sophomore year. But this is really what you have all these guys for. The Panthers retained every single offensive lineman on this year's squad was retained from the year before, maybe besides one. Is that what we determined ultimately?
Yeah, Andrew Rain wasn't around, but he was missing on the practice squad.
So, what a luxury to have. Now that Chandler is not taking those second team,
right guard,
left guard, interior offensive lineman snaps, that means more opportunities for Jatir Carter, more opportunities for Brady Christensen, though we already know what we're going to get in Brady as a really consistent and versatile guy. More opportunities for Jarrett Kingston. I understand this is football. In 2023, the offensive line had so many injury attrition issues. So this is ultimately a good early test of how deep this offensive line is. And then, of course, if whoever wins the Austin Corbett, Kaye Mays sweepstakes at the center spot is also like a really versatile interior offensive lineman guy. Mike, were you about to add something about that?
What I would say is, if you think about it, if Christensen's playing more guard, that allows Josh Nijman and Michael Tarkin to play more tackle. Like it's like a whole. I mean, there's a lot going. You're adding seasoning there. It's the same point I made about cornerbacks. If you are not giving young guys reps, they'll never know what they're going to be like once the actual situation is in place. And so with that, I think it's a good time to kick off your whole goodbye thing. And also the wonderful graphic. Send us home, Alex.
Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike Kaye and myself and our wonderful producer, Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap.